Welcome to the Footy Accumulators Betting Show. I'm Will Perry with my Tweedledee and Tweedledum, Bert and Ernie, my Statler and my Waldorf, former baller, Alan McInally, and the man who scores 40 yards in his dreams at Deepdale, James Vickers. In fact, has anyone scored a screamer, a 40-yard screamer at Deepdale, James?
I don't think anyone's scored full stop at Deepdale for the last few weeks, but I'm dreaming of them 40-yarders, yeah.
Wait, what is it? One point in 3 games since the restart. We won't talk about Preston and this one, shall we? Look, since we were last together, we've discovered that Liverpool are absolutely rubbish. Alan?
Yeah, Klopp's got to go, hasn't he? I mean, that was just a disaster. Well, I mean, to be fair, I mean, I was more surprised at the result, obviously 4-0 for Manchester City. I thought City would maybe win 2-1. It'd be a lot tighter. But certainly City showed exactly why they are smarting, that the gap is 20-odd points, and they will be stronger in chasing Liverpool next year for sure.
Do you think the celebrations might have had something to do with it, a little something?
I can assure you they've had something to do with it. I've been in a wonderful position that I've won bits and pieces in my career, and I remember one specific, I'll just do it really quickly. When we won the championship at Bayern, we had to go to the Mariensplatz in the middle of the city. There was like 40,000 people there. And we had a couple of drinks, as you can imagine. And Heinke said to me at night, he said, "Do you want to play tomorrow?" And I was like, "No, I'm if you don't mind, boss, can I go on the bench?" Because we were, and anyway, and ridiculously enough, we played Dortmund and we beat them 3-0. But I can assure you that a couple of beers would be had with the lads. Maybe they won't be as surprised as maybe what we are.
That was going to be my next question. I didn't want you to do it quickly. I was going to say when you won that title. I mean, there must have been some great stories over there.
There was one brilliant. Apart from, to me, okay, we'd won the league, etc., etc. I had actually played all the games. There was 34 league games. I'd played 32. I was suspended for one. I picked up, I think it was 4 bookings at the time I was suspended for. And he said, "Look, do you want to play tomorrow?" And I said, "I'm okay. I'm a happy, boss." Because he actually wanted to play young boy Manfred Bender and Thomas Kastenmeier, a couple of young lads. And I said, "Look, I'm fine. I'm okay." And Klaus Augenthaler, Mihailovic, Jurgen Kohler and myself, we all went out for a couple of beers on the Friday night. And on the Saturday, I said, I'm quite glad I'm not playing today. And we all got on these open-top Mercedes cars and drove us round the stadium, like waving. And I had a bottle of champagne in between my feet, topping up my glass as I was going round with my kit on. It was just, yeah, great memories, fab memories. But and a wonderful position to be in, and Liverpool should party on for the next 3 or 4 weeks if they want. It wouldn't bother me one little bit. I'll be staying clear from the Liverpool games, to be honest, if I'm in a betting sense.
I mean, look, James, just finally on Liverpool, do they deserve to go and break all these records and smash City's 100 points? They can't get the 107 now, can they? But they can get there or thereabouts, and they can certainly still break all sorts of records in terms of away points and home wins and all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think last night as well will be a bit of a wake-up call. You saw Klopp after the game was absolutely fuming in his interview with Jeff Shree's quite sort of spiky with him. And I think the man that he is, that'll be, I know Alan said to stay clear of him in a betting sense, but I think that'll be a big wake-up call for them. Andy Robertson in particular looked like he'd just come straight down from like the 3rd division in Scotland and been thrown into that Liverpool team. So, yeah, I think there's still things to be won for them in terms of bragging rights and records to go for. So I can't see Klopp letting them put in that performance week in, week out for the remainder of the season. And I think we'll start to see as well a few of the sort of fringe players get a chance who will be dead eager to get in the fray for next year. Yeah,
that moves us nicely on, actually, Alan, to talking about the PFA Player of the Year. Look, as an award, because you voted for it as well, haven't you, when you were at Aston Villa?
Yep.
It's the most prestigious from a player's point of view. It's the one you want to win.
Yeah, I think when your players vote for you, you play against and etc. It is a real huge pat in the back. I was never fortunate enough, unfortunately, to get anywhere near the top 10. Even though I had a couple of great seasons and wherever I played, I didn't get to that kind of level because they're just. So I'm trying to think even back who won it in 88, even when I was at Villa. 87, you're talking, I can't even remember who played. It might even be someone like Tony Adams, who was brilliant that season for Arsenal. I'm trying to think who was at Manchester United, like some Brian Robson and and all these just unbelievable top football players. But I think when you get voted by your peers, then there's no question that would be for me the biggest pat in the back, regardless what Andy said or thought about how you played football. But
well, here you go.
I'm presuming you're going to give us. Who's the top? I'm going to say De Bruyne is in it, Mane's in it. I'm Henderson. I'm not really sure who's in it. I haven't seen the list.
James, do you think then a Liverpool player deserves to win it this year, given how insanely brilliant they've been, particularly before the lockdown? We forget how good they were, don't we, with that sort of 4-month break? But let me give you some of the odds. Mane 6-4 is the favourite. Henderson 3-1, second favourite. Currently, these are the odds from Sky Bet prices. De Bruyne 7-2, and Van Dijk, who won it last year, didn't he? 9-2 to retain that, to win it again. What do you think? Do you think a Liverpool guy deserves to lift that?
I think, yeah, a Liverpool guy definitely deserves to win it with the way they've played this season. De Bruyne, I think, for me, is probably at the moment the best player in the Premier League. But with what Liverpool have achieved this season, I think it would be wrong to look past the Liverpool guys. I think Mane, probably, as you said, odds-on favourite at the moment, but I wouldn't be surprised if Henderson won it just for the way he's captained that side. For someone who was on the verge of being sold to Fulham a few years ago before Klopp came in, the way he's sort of turned it around at Liverpool, he's won them as a captain, their first league title for decades, and the way he's carried that team, even against Manchester City, was the only one still sort of running with that fight and desire when they were 4-0 down at the end of the game, which sort of says volumes about him. And if he can continue that form into next summer for the Euros for England, I think he's going to be one of the first names on the team sheet. So I think Mane, with what he's done in an individual sense this year, will probably win it. But if I was sort of had the privilege of voting, I'd probably be going more so Henderson for the way he's carried that team.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're all pretty likeable guys as well, aren't they, Al? Those four names that you mentioned. Obviously, I haven't even mentioned, further down the list, the likes of Salah, who he's still had a great season, not anywhere near the season he had last season. But how much being likeable comes into it, do you think?
Yeah, probably. If you've kicked lumps out of somebody when you played against them, the last thing they're going to do is vote for you. Maybe that's exactly the reason why I didn't get Player of the Year. But I do think that James might be come up with a bit of a gem there. You say Henderson was 3-1. That's an awful big price considering where he's come from, what he's done as captaining a football club that is humongous and don't have the opportunity to ever down tools at any time of the season, apart from when you win the league. The Mane situation, I mean, he's been sensational, but maybe a little diluted for the simple reason that there's three of them up there and they all do a great job for Liverpool, don't they? But it'll be an interesting one, what the players decide, whether they thought Mane was just too sensational and difficult to play against, or whether Jordan Henderson rise to captain and leader and etc with Liverpool, who actually gets it. Don't worry, by the way, incidentally, if you're betting anybody else that's not in the Liverpool team, then you waste your money. It will be a Liverpool player that'll be PFA Player of the Year.
Yeah, look, I mean, Jordan Henderson's rise has been ridiculous, isn't it? From the reserves at Sunderland under Roy Keane, where he was banished to, not even being in the first team, to arriving at Liverpool. And let's rewind a little bit and remember when he came to Liverpool, and a lot of people, including, I remember speaking to Mark Lawrenson about it, they were saying, like, Jordan Henderson's got to be Brendan Rodgers' love child. He didn't understand how he was getting in that team to suddenly then being El Capitano and lifting the Champions League and now the Premier League. Boy, come good from the northeast.
Amazing, James. Could you believe that was happening? I mean, James, you must remember when he signed. So, what did you think when he comes from Sunderland?
Yeah, when he came from Sunderland, I thought he'd be more of a sort of a squad player, bit part player who sort of filled in here and there, similar to how like Lallana's been in the last few years. But the way he has got his head down and worked, when he first signed for them, I thought he was sort of that, like an average player. But now, sort of as an England fan, he is centre midfield, first name on the team sheet for me, probably given the captaincy as well. Absolutely fantastic, and it's just credit to him with how hard he's worked. He's not the most gifted technically, but what he makes up for in desire to sort of get on the ball and drive that team forward, is absolutely sensational. So yeah, massive fan of him now, and probably one of the top 5 midfielders, I'd say, in the Premier League at the moment, judging on how he's played this season.
And look, against City, right up into the 90th minute, it was like the title was on the line, wasn't it? When they were 4-0 down, and he was still absolutely blowing in, going for it, as others were being pulled off, perhaps with a little bit of a hangover. Look, so you said it's got to be a Liverpool player. On De Bruyne, and is this me with my rose-tinted pale blue glasses, but is Kevin De Bruyne the best, look, we said it, the best midfielder in the Premier League. Is he the best player in the world at the moment?
No, because Oh God, he's so good, Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, what I would give to play with Kevin De Bruyne playing passes through to you, it would be just
on that
it
subject,
would be
Alan,
sublime.
on his passes, because I mean, I'm going to put it out there. So he's the best passer in the
Yeah.
world because his variety of passing. Look, we've had some great deliverers of the ball in the past in the Premier League. You know, Beckham being one of them, but a certain type of ball. De Bruyne could do every type of pass, like you say, those blind passes. You know, give people the eyes, and suddenly the ball's gone 50 yards and it's curled on the outside of his foot.
When you're a football player, Will, I mean, even where I played, sometimes I played with my back to goal, depending on how we played, or sometimes you have to try and take it. As soon as it comes to you, you have to actually have a little bit of awareness around about you. He doesn't even seem to look at times. He just gets it and then turns it to somebody, and the pass goes to where it's intended to. He is genuinely incredible. The reason I said, is he the best? It's hard for me to get past Ronaldo and Messi every time you talk about the best, because they are quite simply unbelievable football players. Kevin De Bruyne is putting himself into a position where I think he can become like them and that important to a football team. He's just a joy to watch. Any good football player is a joy to watch. But Kevin De Bruyne is just, it's difficult not to like him as well. He just seems a likeable guy, I suppose. Maybe he will win the PFA. But in terms of your passing stat, etc., and he can do it all. I'm trying to think what he can't do. And I've just remembered what he can do, because he should have scored with a header last night. It's the only thing he can do. But even with Kevin De Bruyne, you hold your hands up and say, just do what you want, because you're fantastic.
Yeah. So, James, you're going to go with Henderson, yeah? 3-1. What are you thinking then, Al, if I had to put you on the spot?
Yeah, just because of, I think, what the players will know in their head, how big Liverpool is, what a job he's done, galvanising the football team when things haven't been easy. I think Henderson's it's an awful big price at 3-1. And I'm going to go Henderson as well, actually. I just think he's a leader of the team. And although Mane's fantastic, his job is diluted a little bit for the simple reason you have got Firmino and Salah, etc., in that Liverpool front line.
Right, I want to move on and talk about relegation odds in the Championship. Because look, it's not often we can focus on that for a couple of minutes. At the top of the table, it's still really interesting, isn't it? Leeds and West Brom and Brentford closing in on an automatic place as well. But down the bottom, just to give you, this is obviously before the Friday game, but in 9 on 45 points, Huddersfield 45, Middlesbrough 44. Then the bottom three, Stoke, Barnsley and Luton. Luton on 40, Barnsley on 41, Stoke on 43. James, the way Preston are going, you might be in the mix as well in about 3 weeks' time. That was harsh. That was a cheap shot, and I take it back. Right, bottom three. Who's going down in the champ? James.
God.
I think at the moment, Luton and Barnsley have probably left themselves a little bit too much to do, just with the way their squads are in terms of depth, looking at the teams above them. I know they're only 2, 3, 4 points behind the teams above them. I think at this stage of the season, for the way they've been playing for the majority of the season, that's probably a little bit too much. Really do worry about Stoke.
Yeah, they're in free fall, aren't they?
Yeah, and looking at their sort of recent form, they're losing games against teams around them. They've been beat by Wigan and Middlesbrough in their last 2 games, which are teams, just sort of above or outside the relegation zone. So if you are losing against those teams around you, it's really ringing alarm bells for me. And for the majority of the season, they've been sort of like that. They had a little upturn in form around Christmas, but they've sort of reverted back to old ways. And I think Middlesbrough, what will probably save them is getting Warnock in. I think it was probably the right call at the right time to get rid of Woodgate. They persevered with him for the majority of the season, but, enough was enough. I think Huddersfield, just with the goals they score, got a great result against Birmingham the other night as well, will probably be safe. Hull would be the only other real one that I worry about, but obviously they got a good win against Middlesbrough last time out. So, yeah, I really worry about Stoke. Obviously, it's fine, or I say fine, losing against the likes of Leeds and West Brom, games that you're probably not expected to win. But when you're dropping points and then big 6-pointers down the bottom, alarm bells start ringing. So I wouldn't be surprised if the bottom 3 at the moment stay as the bottom 3, which is incredible to think about Stoke, who were in the Premier League for so long, only up until a couple of seasons ago, and now potentially going down into League One. But yeah, I think that bottom 3 as it is will probably be the bottom 3 come the end.
Well, you say that about Stoke, and obviously, they were in the Prem, but so were Huddersfield even more recently, and Huddersfield 5-1, but they're only just above the relegation zone, aren't they, with the Cowley brothers, 2 points above Stoke. And actually, the odds are fascinating. Just looking at some of the odds on the Betfair Exchange, Barnsley favourites to go down 8-15, Hull second favourites 8-11, and then this surprised me. Next in line, Wigan 5-7. Wigan are 7 points above the bottom three. Of course, that news coming in that they've gone into administration, which couldn't have come at a worse time out, could it?
Yeah, that's kind of throwing another 7 clubs in and around them a bit of a lifeline. It's an absolute shame. I did a piece on Sky the other night there when we had the soccer special, and I talked about it being Dave Whelan's baby. They've been bought over a month ago. Things are looking a little bit better, and all of a sudden they go into administration. After, by the way, Paul Cook getting 2-3 games on the bounce, great results. It's a bit of a mystery to me, and we'll find out more about it, presumably. But their odds on to go down. Now, I'm going to throw a little mixer in here. I don't think Luton will go down. I watched Luton, and I thought they played better football than about 4 or 5 clubs round about them. I do think Stoke are in trouble. I think Barnsley are already gone. But I wouldn't think Borough's out. I mean, Borough have got a big game at home against Queen's Park Rangers at the weekend. That's a must-win game. And Luton have a home game against Reading. And it wouldn't surprise me if Luton win that and try and drag themselves out of it. I think Huddersfield will be okay. But I'm going to go Borough to go down. What I've seen, listen, you need to score goals. You need to score plenty of them. And if you're doing that at the same time, that helps. If you're conceding goals, which I think Middlesbrough haven't been brilliant, and Neil Warnock will certainly make them, you would hope, better and more aware of the danger when the ball comes into the box. But what I've seen so far with Borough, I haven't been that impressed, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can't see Borough going down now under Warnock, can you, with everything that he's about, especially with that short-term bounce that you're going to get from him. So some other odds there. Yeah, Luton, you mentioned, obviously bottom of the table, 4 points from safety. Evens, the relegation odds for them.
Even thinking, well, sorry to interrupt me, even because surely if you're bottom of the table, you're 1-3 to go down or 2-5. They're not. Barnsley 8-15. You said Hull 8-11, Wigan 5-7, and Luton are even money. So I don't maybe one of the bookies has actually watched them and think they're going to be all right. But listen, it is the biggest bun fight of all time down at the bottom of the Championship. Anything can happen.
Yeah, go and have a punt on that then if you fancy that. Luton evens, as I say, Stoke 9-4, Borough 4-1, Charlton 4-1, and Huddersfield 5-1. Loads to play for in the Championship. Let's move on and talk about stuff in the Premier League. And I want to focus on Eddie Howe this week because I could not believe it. I was at West Ham against Chelsea midweek and had an eye on that game before kickoff at the London Stadium. And what I was seeing on the South Coast, I couldn't believe it. That was a must-win game for Eddie Howe against Newcastle. Bearing in mind, boys, that their next 4 games, right, in the Premier League, Manchester United, Tottenham, Leicester, and Manchester City. I mean, wow. No words. Bournemouth battered 4-1 at home by Newcastle, who really had nothing to play for. You know, Steve Bruce perhaps just playing for a bit of pride if he's going to lose his job when the takeover happens. But a game that they had to win. 1 point from their last 7, 6 defeats. Is that them gone, you think, James? Bournemouth now?
I think so, yeah. That Newcastle game, it was one that I was actually having a look at betting on Newcastle, and I thought with how inconsistent Newcastle have been this season, surely Bournemouth will raise their game for it, with it being, a game that they definitely need to win. And I was just shocked with how easily Newcastle were able to cut through them. They just sort of rolled over, and to sort of go with what you said with those next 4 fixtures, their last 2 fixtures after that are at home to Southampton, who've been absolutely flying, and then away at Everton. So I think out of a set of 6 fixtures that you could pick at the moment, I think that'd be the last 6 I'd want to choose. So I can't even see Bournemouth picking up another point between now and the end of the season, if I'm being brutally honest. And yeah, I think Eddie Howe's done fantastic to get them where they are from when he took over, when they were down in League One. But I think he he's been there that long now that it's become a little bit stale for him. I think losing Ryan Fraser, for him not signing a new deal, has been, a huge loss for them. But, that's only at the forward end of the pitch. The amount of goals they're conceding as well. It's all right scoring goals, but if you can't keep them out at the other end, alarm bells are still ringing. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much them gone now. As I said, I can't see them getting another point in the next 6, if I'm being brutally honest, which is a shame because over the last few years, they've been a bit of a breath of fresh air in the Premier League. They've been a nice attacking side to watch for a team that had come up. But yeah, I'm worried about them, and I think that is probably a bridge too far for them now to stay up.
Look, and they were so good, weren't they, last year and the seasons? Look, and we have to remember how they've come up from League One. Eddie Howe came back from Burnley, didn't he? And, into the Championship, into the Premier League. Look at last season, the combinations between Callum Wilson and Ryan Fraser. And that's obviously what they've missed drastically, that, the injury to Wilson and obviously Fraser not being in form. But you'd imagine the Vultures will be circling around the Vitality Stadium, won't they, in the summer for the likes of Nathan Ake. He's been linked with Manchester City, Ramsdale, the goalkeeper. Callum Wilson, who I mentioned, Harry Wilson, obviously not going to be there. He's on loan. It could be quite depressing for those Bournemouth fans if they go down.
And that'll be the burning point for Eddie, that the players you've mentioned are good Premier Division football players. These are not Championship players we're talking about. We're talking about Premier Division football players that for
David
whatever
Brooks,
reason...
is another one that's just come to mind.
So I was going to mention David Brooks, certainly Nathan Ake, one of my favourites. I think he's really good, Nathan Ake. I'll tell you right now, when Bournemouth do go down, because I think I'm agreeing with James, I don't think they'll stay up now. I think you're looking at 5-6 players disappearing for Bournemouth. I mean, the boy Josh King and Callum Wilson. I mean, what about, was it, help me out here, I forgot his name now. Solanke? Not Solanke, yeah.
David, Solanke. Yeah.
He had to score the goal for 20 games or something. That's something ridiculous. And, just their form has just been so bad. And incidentally, I have genuinely, just because it's little Bournemouth, a kind of sentimental thing about, can't believe they're in the Premiership for the length of time that Eddie's had them in there for, and their average crowd or their top crowd, James, is it 15,000 gets into the Vitality or something?
Thereabouts,
yeah, it's not a lot. So even to compete like that, Will, is unbelievable. And that was kind of the kind of plus side, that it was going to be difficult for teams coming to Bournemouth. And all of a sudden, all the cards have just fallen down, and they're just being a pushover now. And, Eddie will be scratching his head. It's funnily enough, and just very briefly, and it's not really got anything to do with anything particularly, but in his body language, I've seen something that you don't normally see with Eddie, that he seems, and I don't want to say devoid of idea because that would be unfair. He just looks a bit beaten, as though, beat again, I can't believe it, and just looks as if he's carrying a huge weight in his shoulders at the moment. I can't remember, I think it was Everton they played. And he just looked completely and utterly demoralised almost, because his team are playing so abject. Simple as that.
What do you think they do then, James? Just looking at some odds here, quite interesting. Cut actually from 14-1 to 2-1 with Paddy Power for Eddie Howe to be the next Premier League manager to leave. But obviously that's talking about to leave during the season. 5-6 that no manager leaves before the end of the season. Do you think that they would do that to Eddie Howe, bearing in mind his connections with the club and how long he's been there, or do they want him in the Championship and to give him a crack at getting back next year?
I think keeping him would be the sensible thing to do. Whether they do that or not remains to be seen. I think, as I said, with the fixtures that they've got, any manager coming in, I don't think if Guardiola came in, for example, or Jurgen Klopp, I don't think he'd be able to keep them up at the moment with the way they're playing and those fixtures that they have. I think it's probably best to stay with Eddie Howe. He's a manager who did fantastically well at the Championship. For the players that they'll probably lose in the summer, they should get, a decent bit of cash in for them. So there's an opportunity there for him to rebuild the squad in the Championship, get them back up at the first sort of time of asking, if they're lucky. So I think it'd be wrong to get rid of him now. I think any manager that does come in is going to, ultimately wind up with the same fate. And for going down into the Championship, as you've seen with sort of Stoke and Middlesbrough, who we touched on, that instability when you get down into the Championship really does cost you. So if they can keep it sort of as consistent as possible, they've got a better shot at getting back up. Obviously, if they get to the summer and Eddie Howe and then decide, it's best for both parties to walk away, at least a manager's got a bit of a pre-season then to, get the team playing how he wants, get players in. But I think at the moment, regardless of who they have in charge, I think there's very little chance of them staying up. So I'd be, for Bournemouth, I'd be looking at it, keeping Eddie Howe until the end of the season and then reassessing from there.
James, do you not think it'll be Eddie that'll make the decision rather than Bournemouth Football Club himself?
I'd like to think so, yeah. I think because he's been there that long, the connections that he's got with the club, I'd like to think that the board would give him, that respect to make that decision himself. As I said, he has been there for, ages now, and there are times, when a manager has been there for a while where it does get a bit stale, and he may want a fresh challenge, which may be part of what's gone on this season. But yeah, I'd like to think that come the summer that they'll sit down and have sort of a mutual agreement about where they want to go, if they carry on together or they go their separate ways.
Yeah, so look, Norwich look gone, don't they? Bournemouth look like they're nearly there, and then really interesting in terms of Aston Villa and West Ham, who got that great result against Chelsea midweek. Who saw that one coming? And then of course you go further up the table to Watford and Brighton, still not safe yet as well. So in the same vein, Al, the question to you about Aston Villa with Dean Smith and John Terry, because I thought it was fascinating watching I covered that game against Wolves, and I thought the body language from John Terry was almost, he was just retreating during the conversations on the side, as in like, this is nothing to do with me, potentially, maybe even sort of saying to the board like, oh look, I would have done things differently. If you're Aston Villa, all right, Dean Smith's a boyhood Villa fan, but you've got the games to keep you in the Premier League. They play West Ham on the last day of the season as well, which could be a relegation playoff, couldn't it? Do you make that decision because they are probably more of a business than Bournemouth, aren't they, Aston Villa, in terms of having a technical director and Christian Purslow still involved? Do you go, thanks, Dean, John Terry, it's yours till the end of the season, go for it?
Well, I think changing things now would be a bit of a disaster, to be honest. And I think you've just got to give Dean the reins and let him do what he's trying to do. I mean, they've spent a lot of money, so they're under a little bit of criticism for that. Villa should have given me a job there a long, long time ago as director, by the way, incidentally, and I'm just throwing my name into the ring because I was looking for exactly that job that Purslow's got to try and help my... Yeah, absolutely. I'd have loved to have done that back to my old club. For sure I would have. But of course, me being at Sky, then that was all right. But,
you're the perfect man to ask. You're in that boardroom there now. You've got the job. Perslow's not there. You really stick with Dean Smith? Do you, given the way that it's...
You can't get... What are you going to do in 6 games? Okay, first and foremost, who are you bringing in? Who are we bringing in? And I do think the John Terry scenario, I think it's difficult for John, because John doesn't want to overstep the mark in terms of overriding anything Dean says. Certainly on the sideline, when they're in the dressing room together with the players, I'm hoping he's as vocal as he ever was on the pitch, John Terry, because his experience could be absolutely vital. But regardless of anything of that, if you look at what's happening on the pitch, we don't look as if we're going to score any goals. That's a problem. And what I'm talking about, like John McGinn, who's great that he's back, etc., etc., etc. We just really don't have somebody in wide areas that gets the ball out the box nice and early, and we don't have anybody that puts the ball in the back of the net. We don't even look as if we've got 2 or 3 of our midfielders who's going to get us 3 goals before the end of the season. And it's a real problem. And if you don't score goals, you ain't winning games. And that's what Villa are staring down the barrel. What they can do is look at the West Ham result the other night. Well, now you were there, Will, and you saw West Ham beating Chelsea. No one saw that coming. So with a bit of luck, Villa might somehow get into top gear at some point within the next 6 games. And before they even get to the West Ham game at the end of the season, hopefully they might just have their heads above the water. But this is really going to be difficult for Aston Villa.
Yeah, like you say, they can't score goals. They can't keep them out as well. John Terry, you thought would be, as the unbelievable player that he was, and probably could still be right now to this day. They've conceded 60 goals out. I mean,
I know that. Well, listen, everybody's talking about Tyrone Mings as the great, hope, etc., etc. But so far, and you can't blame Tyrone. That'd be unfair of me. But I'm just saying, if he's the one with a bit of experience and now an English international, he's got to be bringing everybody together. They've got to be smelling danger all over the place, surely. That's not been the case either. And I'm talking about scoring goals, and you're quite right to flag that up. 60 goals they've conceded. That ain't keeping you in any league, by the way.
Right, boys, on to the nap challenge. Pro versus punter. And James still leading Alan by 5-3. Both of you fluffed it last week. James failing with Birmingham to beat Hull, and Alan got it all wrong with his Swansea prediction to get a win against Luton, both of those in the Championship. So what are you sticking your 20 quid on this weekend to trigger your £5 free bet to start your bet streak on the Betfair Exchange? James, as you're ahead, we'll let you go first, mate.
Well, I got some absolute flack on Twitter for that pick last week, so I'm gonna go a little bit brave again to give Alan a little bit of an opportunity to claw it back. I'm gonna go Newcastle at home to West Ham. Newcastle 10-5 on the Betfair Exchange. Been really impressed with Newcastle since the restart. Great win at Bournemouth. Obviously, West Ham did have that good result against Chelsea, but I just favour Newcastle more at home. Joelinton looks like a different player. St Maximin's playing well. And even Almiron is chipping in with goals and assists now, which he struggled to do in any game at the first half of the season. So Newcastle for me at St James's Park, I just can't see past them, and it's a great price as well. So yeah, Newcastle as my nut pick.
Yeah, they go well, Newcastle, aren't they? Who needs to take over? Al, who needs Coutinho? Who needs Pochettino?
Yeah, exactly. They certainly look pretty. I mean, Stevie Bruce has done a great job. End of.
Yeah. So you're picking, Al, from Sunday and Monday games only. What are you going to do to close in on Vickers here?
Sunday, so that leaves Liverpool, Villa, and I can't pick Liverpool because I don't want Villa to lose. City will be too short. I can't go for that one. Burnley, Sheffield United, that's a toughie. And into the Championship, Swansea, Borough, West Brom. I'm already behind. And I didn't think Spurs were particularly fantastic at all. And I thought Everton under Ancelotti that we've spoken about. So I'm going to really go head on block big time. And there've got to be a good price here. Everton to go to Tottenham and win, James Price. I know, big one, isn't it?
Yeah, 5-4 for Everton to win that.
Oh, I thought you did more than that. Well, that just shows you then that even the bookies thought that Spurs' performance against Sheffield United wasn't very good. So, Toffees in London, Everton to beat Spurs.
Oh, excuse me, I've looked at Spurs there. I'm 13-5 you're looking at for Everton.
Okay, that sounds
even
better.
Better. Just over 2.5.
Nice, I like that. Two good shouts. Newcastle then at home to West Ham, and Al going for an Everton win in the capital against Tottenham on Monday night. Right, guys, let's move on to the match in focus this week, which is Spurs against Everton, Monday night. Look, Jose Mourinho, James, I remember when he came in and he was talking about, I think it was West Ham, wasn't it? They won at West Ham, and he says, he's the right fit and he can see this bright future for Tottenham. And he was saying all the right things and so on. After a defeat this week against Sheffield United, lingering further down the table than they'd like to be, and probably a lot further down the table than they thought they would be post Pochettino. Is he the wrong fit for them? Has he actually improved Tottenham at all?
Is he the right fit for them? I think potentially come the summer when he's got a transfer window or two come this time next year to actually get the players in he wants. I think he probably can be. I think at the moment what he's got going against him is, I touched on it a few weeks ago, that defence at the moment for them is in desperate need of a rebuild. And I think if he had the opportunity to bring in whichever players he wanted or keep the Spurs defence at the moment, I think there's only Lloris that he'd probably keep. The centre-backs in particular, massive concern for me. I think Davinson Sanchez is the only real one who has a long-term future at the club. Obviously, the Tongan and Alderweireld, they're getting the wrong side of 30 now. Dyer looks a little bit shaky every time I see him, which, isn't the player that he was a few years ago. And the full-back areas as well. I said they haven't replaced Trippier and Rose either. So I think at the back, for Mourinho teams, we've always associated them with being, tight at the back, hard to beat, and they'll nick a goal past you. But I just don't see them keeping many clean sheets at the moment. Forward areas, I was watching the coverage that Sky did the other day, and I don't often agree with Graham Souness, but I think he hit the nail on the head. They're really missing that number 10 at the moment. Since Christian Eriksen's gone, you can have the best forward in the world, and Harry Kane is certainly up there. But if there's no one getting the ball into him, he's going to struggle to score goals. Lo Celso's been okay in fits and starts. Dele Alli's really come off the pace. He had that little sort of hot patch when Mourinho first came in, but he's gone off the boil again. And you can have Ndombele, Sissoko, Lo Celso sat in there, but if no one's getting the ball up to Kane and Moura, Bergwijn, and Son, they're not going to put the ball in the back of the net. So I think he's got a real rebuilding job on his hands. So it'd be unfair to judge him at the moment. But I think the way they've played so far, I think Pochettino probably would have had them in exactly the same place that they're in.
I'll tell you what, you're spot on about that number 10. And the more you think about it, the more you think that Jack Grealish would be the perfect fit for Tottenham, wouldn't you, this summer? Who's had the bigger impact than Al, do you think? Spurs, Mourinho, Ancelotti, Everton?
Oh, there's absolutely no question about Ancelotti making Everton a far better outfit. And I don't even mean the very opening fixture when they got the 0-0 against Liverpool. If you watch Everton now, they are 5-6 goals better in a month that Ancelotti's done with them. I think James is absolutely spot on with Spurs, by the way. Not only defensively are they struggling, I think in the midfield it's a bit of a kind of cartoon at the moment, because There is no. I don't want to say they're rudderless. That would be unfair. But I don't see anybody getting ended by the grip of the neck at all. But if you look at Everton, all of a sudden they look a completely different outfit under Ancelotti. Everybody seems to know what they're doing. Whatever he's got, way he likes them to play, everybody does the job. Even the boy Tom Davis, I think, is an improved player under Ancelotti, because I thought at times he looked as if he was a bit of a loose cannon. All of a sudden, somebody seems to have got the reins on him, and he's doing exactly what Ancelotti obviously wants him to do. You know, not lunging in for tackles, being more disciplined, playing where he wants to play him, getting into areas where he's meant to be. So to answer your question, there's absolutely no question that Ancelotti, by far, has made Everton better than what Mourinho has made with Spurs.
Yeah, won their last two, haven't they, Everton, and looking good after the restart, having lost the Merseyside derby before that. Right, when we talk about Tottenham, do you think, James, that they're going to get 1 year max out of Harry Kane? Do you think they've got one more season in with him? I say White Hart Lane at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium before he then moves on.
I think so, yeah. I think with the way, obviously, the world is at the moment, I can't see many people being able to afford him, which is probably sort of a blessing for Spurs. The way that they can, keep hold of him at the moment. I think probably if it carries on the way that it is doing for Spurs, I think selling him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, which I know sounds difficult or sounds silly to say for someone who, is regularly hitting 20, 25 goals a season for them. But the money that they get from him in those areas that I touched on before, they could use that to seriously rebuild that squad. And then you've still got the likes of Son, Bergwijn and Lucas Moura as well, who certainly know where the goal is. So I think, yeah, they will keep him for another season, purely for the fact that not a lot of people will be able to afford him at the moment. And the ones that can afford him, the likes of City, Liverpool, for example, have already got, fantastic attacking departments. Man United, potentially, but I think they, rather than an out-and-out striker at the moment, I think there's a couple more pressing issues for them in terms of getting another left-back and a centre-back in. So whether United...
James, how much does Kane cost? Man United want Kane. How much does he cost?
I'd say anywhere between sort of 80 to 90 million.
You think?
I think, if it's 80 million, I think Man United and a lot of other clubs would be genuinely interested.
You don't think he's over 100 million quid?
Yeah.
I think for the goals he scores, he's definitely worth the money. I think the only thing that stops him going into that 100 million bracket at the moment is his injuries that he's had over the last few years. It's a lot of money to be paying for someone, especially sort of in this climate, and for someone who has the potential to miss, large chunks of the season through injury. It's a bit of a gamble, but obviously if you can keep him fit, he's easily going to get you, 25.
Well, how old's Kane? I can't remember. I'm going to say 20, 28, 28. Yeah, something like that.
Well, look, I wanted to ask you, Al, because how good is Harry Kane? And I know that's so. Yeah, he's 26. He was 26 he's 27 in July. 28th of July.
See, I've got him a bit older there. I thought he was 28. Well, to answer your question, I think the boy's different class. Yeah. I think Jamie is right to flag up the injuries. That hasn't been particularly brilliant, and it does set you back. And he's a big lad, when you come in. When my career ended, when I hurt my knee, because I was, over 6 feet, there's a lot of pressure on your joint, etc., etc. And when something goes a little bit, normally it never gets back to being the 100% that it was. And hopefully he's managed to be in a position where it wasn't as bad as all that. He is absolutely fantastic, Kane. I think he's a leader on the pitch. I think he's a good influence in the dressing room. Captain England, for goodness sake. And if Manchester United are genuinely interested in catching the top two, they need to be going for the best players. They brought in Fernandes, who is a wonderful football player, almost to the point where he's giving Pogba a kick in the pants, and Pogba's almost playing second fiddle to Bruno Fernandes now, and looks happy and delighted to be playing along someone with the class that Fernandes obviously has. And you bring Kane into the Manchester United setup, if they can get him for anywhere near 80 million, if people are going to be spending that kind of money, obviously with the situation the world has found itself in at the moment, I think it'd be an absolutely fantastic sign. I really do.
The reason I ask, Al, I ask and ask that question is, look, I know clearly he's a talented player, but as a fashionable nine, is he not going out of fashion in that sense? When you look at the likes of Mbappe and you look at the top teams of, say, for example, Manchester City having to replace Sergio Aguero in the next 18 months. He is not going to be that player because he drops so deep, and we've seen it with Tottenham. He actually slows Tottenham down, doesn't he? In the games that they beat City in the Champions League, and had a real crack at them last season. It was when you had the pace of Son and Lucas Moura, and obviously now they've added to that with Bergwijn. So he is a different type of striker, isn't he? He's old-fashioned, but is that out of fashion?
Yeah, maybe an old-fashioned striker, but I tell you what, I bet he gets 20 odd goals playing with Manchester United for sure. And the reason he comes deep is because he ain't getting any service with Tottenham, and he's almost coming back in to try and get himself involved in the game. If he goes to a team like, let's say the top one, Liverpool, Manchester United, Manchester City, etc., etc., his job is there, not back there. And that's why you'll use him to your best advantage. An old-fashioned striker, because he's over 6 feet, and is maybe not has the pace that Mbappe has, or a Ronaldo, or the trickery and wizardry of Messi, I'd still think he'd be high on the list of a lot of teams, Harry Kane. I really do. And to throw a real spin in here, I think Spurs will do well to hold on to him, actually. I really do.
Yeah. Look, we talked about a refresh they're needed for Tottenham in the summer. Similar for Everton, I guess, because it's going to be Ancelotti's first real crack at a transfer window. And he would have worked out, wouldn't he, in these 6 months or so, who he fancies, who he doesn't. The likes of Schneiderlin and Niasse are now gone. What about Walcott? What about Moise Kean? What about Bernard? Players that are perhaps on the tightrope where he's thinking, do I want this guy? Do I trust him? They've been linked, interestingly, a guy we've been talking about, haven't we, when we did the Bundesliga show with Leon Bailey.
Bye-bye, all of those players you mentioned. Bye-bye. Because I think he'll think they're not good enough for the way he wants to play, or they're not good enough because he wants to bring even better quality. Theo, when you talk about Theo was a wonderful young football player. He's probably got to, is he 30 yet? I don't know. He's been a lucky boy. I think it was Big Sam that bought him in for 15, 20 million into Everton. And I haven't seen a 15 or 20 million football player. And obviously with the ones you said that had gone, I just think there'll be at least 6 or 7 players at Everton that he'll think are surplus of requirement. And I think, although they spent some money, James will tell us, there's over 100, 150, 160 million, James, Everton spent? Yeah. Something like that, wasn't it? So he's asking to go back into the bank again and get at least, another 60, 70, 80, 90 million to spend in. But I think he'll get the opportunity to bring in 3 or 4 decent players.
What we think
better than what they have.
Yeah, what we think of this game then, James, because look, they're only a point behind Tottenham, Everton. They'll fancy finishing above them, won't they?
Definitely. I wouldn't be surprised at all when I was looking through my naps. Did cross my mind this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Everton get something from this game against Tottenham. Obviously, Tottenham been a bit hit and miss since the restart. Draw against United, defeat against Sheffield United. Everton been absolutely flying, and at the moment, I just can't look past them, really. I'd probably sit on the fence with Alan saying it's going to be a draw, to be honest. I think Everton are just that good at the moment. Calvert-Lewin is looking like a new player. Mason Holgate at the back's playing really well. And with the way Spurs are sort of a bit hit and miss, you don't know what side's going to turn up for them. So, yeah, I think a draw would be a fair result. Wouldn't be confident at all putting any money on it. Because it's just that difficult to call this game. But yeah, it's one that I'm actually quite looking forward to watching over the weekend, just because of the uncertainty around it.
Yeah, look, Al, you said before you fancied the draw, 12-5 on Boylesports, the draw odds, 11-10 for the Tottenham home win, 5-2 Everton, which is quite tempting, wasn't it, for an Everton win in the capital? Right, guys, last time I was... Go on.
Oh, sorry, Will. No, I was only going to say I'd be tempted if you really push me, the way Spurs played the other day there, and the way that Everton, I think I'm glad that James mentioned Holgate. I'm sure he just signed like a 4 or 5 year contract, so they're obviously happy with him as well. But if you push me, I'd certainly say Everton are more likely to come out with the points than what Spurs are. I'm more against Spurs because I haven't seen anything from them after the break that I thought I'd see under Mourinho. More to the point, I'm kind of sitting on the fence saying that Everton won't get beat.
Yeah. Look, last time I was on, we won the Acca. I don't know what you two idiots came up with last week, so I just thought I'd drop that one in there. Look, we'll call it back to back then, because I wasn't there last week. If we can pull it off again,
yes.
I always get the easy one, don't I? Because I get to choose first. So the ones that tickle my fancy, looking down that list, I was thinking Chelsea reacting from that defeat against West Ham. I just think that the top 4 for them now is in sight, and Frank will be desperate to get back to winning ways. Watford at home at the Bridge. That's on Saturday, and also the other one, if Manchester United against Bournemouth. So are you happy that I go with, why don't I take, what shall I take out of those two?
You can have them both if you want. And that leaves more pressure on you. I'm happy with both United and Chelsea at home, actually.
Okay. So we'll have one of those as our one that we're going to throw in. And then what do you fancy, James?
Having a look, I'm gonna, for the first time, I'm gonna sway away from my nap pick. I'm gonna go with City away at Southampton, which was the one I was considering for my nap.
Okay.
So I'm gonna go with that. I just can't see past City at the moment. I know Southampton are absolutely flying. Danny Ings still knocking them in for fun, and Ward-Prowse is looking like the player he was last season as well. Now watching them, a little bit lucky to lose the game against Arsenal, from a mistake by McCarthy in net. Yeah, I'm going to go with City. I think for Pep now, obviously the league's gone. It'll all be about playing themselves into, form. They're already in great form, but keeping that level up for the FA Cup and then the Champions League a bit further down the line as well. So, yeah, I'm happy to put City on if you guys are. Okay,
I'm slightly sceptical, but we'll go with it. Even as a City fan, I know, like we said before, I just think FA Cup, Champions League, they're thinking about that. They've beaten Liverpool. That kind of felt like the last sort of statement from them. But long old trip, I don't know. Maybe that's just me being a negative blue. Go on, Al. What are we throwing in there for number 4?
I'm going to stay away from Norwich, Brighton, Leicester Palace. Who knows? Man United, you already put in. Obviously, my nap is Wolves at home to Arsenal. I should keep that in, but I've already said about Luton, and I watched Luton, and they play at home on Saturday against Reading. And I'm going to throw Luton in for the simple reason I do think they have some games that have got an opportunity for them to win. They had a good point against Leeds United the last game. So rather than stay in the Premiership, I'm going to drop into the Championship, and every game in the Championship is massive at the moment, isn't it? For the majority of the clubs, because there's 5 or 6 that think they can get into that 6th place, playoff place, and there's obviously the same again who are near relegation. I'm going to go for Luton Town to beat Reading.
Wow.
That really is putting my head on the block.
That really is. James, can you stick that in the Boylesports calculator for us?
So
we're going to go for a Chelsea win, a Manchester United win, Manchester City and Luton in the Championship.
Yeah, so that comes out at 4.6 to 1. So if I run that, get you sort of just shy of 28 quid.
Okay, we'll get that boosted hopefully as well, and hope for back-to-back wins on the Acca. Boys, great to see you. Remember, if you're looking for additional stats and trends ahead of this weekend's Premier League and Championship action, go and download the Footy Accumulators Betting Hub app and check out the smart Acca function. Remember, you've got to be 18 plus to gamble, and please bet responsibly. See you next time.